who are attending right now? Awesome.
There are, yeah.
That's you and me.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, and welcome to today's presentation for the Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter. We're glad that you joined us today. I'm in the process right now of sharing my screen, so give me just a second. We'll get that shared so that y'all can see that. But my name is Scott Murray, and I want to welcome you today. And we'll go ahead and get started here with our presentation. A couple things to mention as we're going through the process. With May coming about, we are starting to get registration information for the PASS Summit. And now with that, we want to make sure that you remember, I'm going to give you a few codes in a second for you to get a discount for that. So if you'll give me just a second, I'm running into a bit of a problem getting the screen share to share. I just had it working, so y'all bear with me just one second. There we go. The screen should share. There we go. Good stuff. So thanks for bearing with me. Now, with that said, I just want to make a couple of brief announcements before we head into our presentation today. First of all, don't miss your chance, as I mentioned, to vote in the 2015 PASS elections. And in order to do that, you have to follow the process of updating your profile. And there's a little checkbox that you get to that'll say you've updated your profile. So make sure if you want to vote in the PASS elections that you update your profile and do that before June 1st. So you just have about a week and a few days left in order to do that. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a registration code down the bottom there that will get you $150 off the PASS Summit, and that's good until July 12th. The code's VC15, B as in boy, R as in read, D as in dog, 5. And that will get you that $150 off. And that's for, again, the summit that's going to occur later this year. Of course, with all the different organizations that PASS runs, you can remember there's virtual chapters and then there's in-person chapters. From you looking at this slide, you'll see the number of virtual chapters has grown exponentially over the past few years, and we encourage you to get involved in multiple virtual chapters, not just business intelligence, although we definitely would like you to join the virtual chapter that you are very specifically attached to. The other thing I will mention is that we're always looking for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking for one of the virtual chapters, please contact the chapter leadership. You can go out to the SQLpass.org website and find the virtual chapter, and from there you can email the chapter leaders. This mentions some upcoming virtual chapter meetings. We're about through the month, so you'll notice there's one later this afternoon, and then there's one on the 22nd. All the rest were earlier this month, so that's why a lot of those are cleared. And then we'll also mention the SQL Saturdays. As you can see, a lot of them have already taken place for May, but these are going on a rolling basis. So in June there'll be more, so take a look in your area to find a SQL Saturday. These SQL Saturday events are free, except for normally you have to pay for lunch, which is a bargain when you think about the amount of training that you receive during the SQL Saturday events. I will definitely recommend you looking into the SQL Saturdays that are near you. I've been to several. And then finally, before we jump into the presentation, I want to mention that there's always opportunities to help volunteer for either in-person events or for the virtual chapters. You can go out and look under volunteer.sqlpass.org, and that'll give you all the information about potentially volunteering for the community that we all belong to under the SQL Server umbrella. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenter today. And what we're going to be looking at is Paresh Motiwala, and he gave me some, and I know I didn't do that well. He gave me some instruction right before we started, and I'm sure I still butchered it, but we're going to be talking about SSIS today and setting up your BI infrastructure with just your general coverage of what you need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Paresh. If you do have any questions, feel free to post them in the question and answer section, and we'll try to answer them during the session or at the end, either one. And of course, if you have technical difficulties, go ahead and post those in the Q&A area. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Paresh, and appreciate you presenting today.
Hi guys, everybody. Can you hear me? If not, just wave your hand in the bottom right-hand corner. And some housekeeping rules. Do we tell them where the bathrooms are and all that, or no?
They can run to it if they need to.
I know, exactly. And hi guys, my name is Paresh Motiwala. I'm out of Boston area in general, and I've been a DBA just about all my life in America. That's about 17 years. And I can show you a little bit of what I do, and I speak at a lot of SQL Saturday events, including the recently concluded SQL Saturday in Puerto Rico. Prior to that, San Francisco, Boston. I'm speaking in Albany. Spoke in SQL Rally in Copenhagen. I organized the Boston SQL Saturday. There's one coming up in Boston on October 18th. That is the BI edition, which could appeal a lot of you. Also, it's a great time to be in Boston because during those 2 weekends or 3, we have pretty close to about 2 million visitors from around the world who come and see the color changes in the leaves here for the fall. So it's a perfect time, and hopefully then Red Sox would have also made it into the Octobers. And having said that, yes, I also organize the SQL Saturdays in the Providence because I live exactly between Providence and Boston. So it's a great place to be in, and without much ado, if everybody can see my screen, if not, just wave on the right-hand corner, and I think Scott would take care of it.
You look good to me. Your screen looks good to me.
You need to be a little louder, though, buddy.
Okay. Your screen looks good to me.
Okay, good. Awesome. So today, I'm going to be speaking about a general, like a 10,000-mile overview of how a lay of the land for the BI infrastructure should look like. And this is approximately the 8th time, I think, that I'm doing this in the past about 6 months. This has become an extremely popular topic for people to come and see, and they can actually see where they fit into the overall BI scheme of things in their organizations. And if you want to make a career move to the next level, it is nice for you to know how everything fits in together. You will be drinking out of the fire hose, so just stay back and enjoy the ride. So this is it, Paresh Motiwala, and I was going to give you a 15-minute training session on how to pronounce my name, but that's okay. We'll do it some other day, and these are my contact information. And currently I work as a SQL Solutions Architect in a company called Actifio out of Waltham, Massachusetts, and we are a copy data virtualization company. And these are the topics on the right. You can see these are the topics that I generally speak on. My topic, database forensics, is also absolutely fabulous. Someday I hope to present it over here too, because when you are having BI and you see some intrusion into your network, how do you go about dealing with that? So if you are in the security part of your BI, you definitely want to attend this. Usually it is in digital forensics and database forensics, it is 2 sessions combined. So having said that, that's my family. That's me and my wife here. We are married 27 years. My daughter, she is about to finish her first year in the med school this Friday. She's 23. My son is 17, and he's a track runner. And as you can see, he's running on the beach. And I'm also a public speaking coach, and I teach public speaking, and I mentor DBAs to get up and present. So if you guys have a topic in mind and you want to discuss that, how to present it, do not hesitate to come and talk to me. And you just saw my contact information there too. So,
hey, Paresh, are you able to potentially just share your one screen instead of both screens, they're both showing up. I didn't know if that would.
Oh, it is?
It is.
I don't know.
If not, that's okay. We'll move on. It works either way. Just trying to.
Let me see how to do that though. Okay, no one sees your screen.
That's right.
And main screen, screen 2.
You can try that. What's that? There you go. That works. That's it. That's okay. Perfect. Thank you.
So just imagine I'm a Microsoft SQL guy and I've been using Mac for the past 6 months and I'm still learning to swim. So this is what it is. So about 2 years ago, we had a gentleman from Microsoft who came up and spoke to us in the Boston user group. And he said that very soon the pure DBA roles will be gone. There will be no more pure DBAs because a lot of our applications are now in the cloud, which don't require DBAs because somebody else is already managing them for you. More and more emphasis is going on to BI. So I posted on my LinkedIn that I was BI curious, but that somehow, because of the typo or autocorrection in the iPhone, it came up as bi-curious, and then the hell broke loose. My wife was upset, and I had to quickly and hurriedly change that. So guns don't kill spades, DBAs kill spades. So who should attend this? So let's see. Definitely DBAs, right? Developers, any of the BI folks, DBA managers, infrastructure folks, CIOs. Okay, how do I move this here? Good. And anybody else who is confused, definitely feel free to attend. So let's look at the components of BI, okay? So what is the first component of a BI setup? Obviously an RDBMS, right? So what would you select in an RDBMS? We will go through that. The second component is going to be reporting, okay? How do you go about selecting and setting up your reporting environment? Then the third most important function is the ETL. If you have SSAS, is something that you can put in too. And collaborative computing, which is becoming big time now through the intranets or extranets. And then always think about redundancy to whatever you are doing in your BI stack, because redundancy is what will save your job. If your setup is not redundant, it is a career altering move or a resume rewriting event, RRE. So let's look at the RDBMS part of the infrastructure first. So what is the things that you look for in an RDBMS? Okay, and this is where you can actually definitely give me a shout and tell me if you have any questions or want to interact. I think Scott will intervene there. So in the RDBMS, the first thing that you want is to select a vendor. So of course this is a Microsoft shop, so gee, guess what? I would like to select SQL Server, and I think 2 days ago I read about Microsoft's market share is approximately 46%, which means it's the highest market share for any RDBMS on this planet right now. So definitely Microsoft SQL Server is a good way to go. And other than the vendor, the next thing you want to look at is the cost. So what is the cost of SQL Server compared to the other legacy products? And sorry, I'm going to beat up Oracle a little bit, so if you feel bad about that, beat me up later on. So yes, definitely Microsoft SQL Server, way too much more cost compatible than any other RDBMS that I have come across. The third thing, is it scalable? Oh yeah, it is. And as you know, most of the major 500 companies are now, whatever new applications they have, they are all switching over to SQL. The only people who continue to still have a huge footprint in Oracle are the ones who have millions and billions of dollars already committed to that infrastructure by Oracle. So is it scalable? Yes, definitely. You want to consider that before you go ahead and you can't use Access to build your RDBMS. Is it fault tolerant? Just show of hands, how many fault tolerances does SQL Server have, right? I mean, it's amazing. We have mirroring, which is soon going to be deprecated. We have Microsoft Windows clustering. We have always on high availability group, and then we have replication, and we have transaction log shipping, and these are the things that make your RDBMS a great choice to have. Can your BI infrastructure support something like a master data management, where when you never have to go back and massage your data after the fact, right? Because after the fact, quality is always more expensive than before the fact. So if your BI environment can have MDM or some sort of a data cleansing mechanism built into it, great. And RDBMS like SQL definitely gives it to you. Sorry, I was just taking a drink of water. And ease of use. What is the ease of use here? You know how many things in SQL you can really learn, of course, by Googling. Two, there are multiple forums like SQLServerCentral.com, SQLTeam.com, MSSQLServerTips.com, and SQLServerPerformance.com, and you can just go on and on and on. And even Microsoft has now become responsive to the TechNet and the postings that happen over there. So anything you don't know, remember in Windows-based servers, right-click when in doubt. So it's very easy to set it up and continue to use it too, and it's very easy to learn it too. So now we'll talk, okay, so you get that, guys? I'm a DBA. Let's assume I'm never wrong. So data warehouse. So that's the second component, which would be part of your RDBMS, but most important thing for you is that a data warehouse is a single version of the truth out there. It is consisting of all your cleansed data. Hopefully you use proper tools like DQS or MDM to have the perfect things out there for you. The data is on demand for you, so you're not always stuck with the data. You can go and look at it whenever you want it. So spend a little more time in creating your data warehouse or have somebody else create it for you. Definitely do not try to save money on this. Go for the best person for your data warehouse. The reason why is the people I have seen fail miserably in their BI events or BI ventures is mainly because they are doing things like transactional replication so that they can run reports off the replicas. I mean, what can possibly go wrong here? So investing in data warehouse takes a whole lot of load off your transactional databases, and it will be a great career move. So if you're a manager or a CIO, please start investing in your data warehouse team. The data is clean, as I said. It is cleansed before you put it in, goes through multiple rules, defined and executed by a very capable data warehouse person. The next one would be, is it trusted? Yes, it is clean, but it is trusted too. Why? Because this data, most of it comes from the applications that are already existing in your environment or in your company. There is nothing in the data warehouse that can exist technically that doesn't already exist in your company. I mean, a couple of derived columns here and there, I can understand, which would be quite a few, but essentially the derived column also comes basically out of the data that is already there. But one of the fun things about data warehouse is that it is app neutral. What do you mean by app neutral? Today, you don't need to know your HR application or your finance application to know your data. Do you need to know what fields, etc.? Yes, you need to know what exact data you're looking at. That's the fundamental rule. So it's an app neutral thing. You don't have to learn Elite as an application to learn your finance data, for example, or Spectrum HR's HR system to run your HR system. The data all exists in the data warehouse and you don't need to worry about it. And just as it is a single version of truth, it is a single point of access too, right? So what is the most important part of a data warehouse other than, yes, doing a great job of creating it and maintaining it? Secure it with your life. It can make or break your career. I absolutely, and a lot of lawsuits can follow because of that. So data warehouse and security, most important for you as a raw material for your BI. Having said that, after the RDBMS, you select your reporting infrastructure. Now, you could go for Crystal reports, you could go for Microsoft Access, you could go for Cognos, but we choose for reporting, the winner is a vendor. The first thing you want to select is vendor. In our case, I suggest we use Microsoft SQL Server because it is free. And that is very crucial for us because we don't have to pay anything extra to Microsoft to start using it. Whereas if you're using something like Cognos or even Crystal reports, it's like $5,000 to $6,000 a license. You can't easily carry it from one desktop to another desktop. So you get the gist of what I'm saying. Then of course the cost. So what is the cost of SSRS, for example? Zero. We don't pay anything at all. So that's huge, right? You can't beat the price. Is it scalable? It is now immensely scalable because what Microsoft has done in its eternal wisdom is to move the processing from the server to the client desktop. So if you have 2,000 desktops in your company, then the workload is essentially divided by 2,000 people. The reports will actually, believe it or not, come back to you in 5 seconds or less. It's only the rendering that will take time, but then that is at the customer side or the browser level is where the rendering takes place. All the reports don't work great with Firefox or Google Chrome. So you need Internet Explorer for it to give you the most value out of that. Is it fault tolerant? Yes. Reporting services hugely fault tolerant. You can move the database from one server to another server and you will live happily ever after. You can still go ahead and use block level replication to copy the entire SQL server to a remote site. So in case this building burns down, you still have everything. Hopefully, of course, people are not adding reports to it by the minute, but even if they do, this is a really safe way to go about doing it, is to have a block level replication or have your reporting server database on a server that is already very highly fault tolerant. Ease of use. How many of you have actually clicked on a database and right-clicked on a database and go to reports and find 5 or 10 most popular reports like disk-based, used by table, and so on. So it's very easy to use. You can quickly build reports. A lot of that feel comes from, really, believe it or not, Access, the point and click, and how to select columns from like tables. They have a very similar look. And skills are portable, right? In the sense that if somebody leaves the organization and goes, your entire reporting infrastructure doesn't come down. If you are going, you can pretty much just carry with you that reporting server database, and then you can recreate all these reports wherever you're going. If somebody leaves your organization, again, that information is already in the database, hopefully safe place, so that, you know, if somebody actually vandalizes the database before going, you still have all your information over there, okay? So, what if I told you you don't need to have to be a SQL DBA, you don't need to know SQL. So now let's take a look at what the reporting server looks like, or the reporting services would look like overall. So here's your OLTP database against your reporting server, and then you have your data warehouse, which is not OLTP, and then you have MDM somewhere in the picture, which would provide you with clean data. And reporting server can also sit on top of the SSAS. And reporting server can connect to SharePoint, which we will talk in later slide, and same thing with SSAS. Now, what does report do? So the delivery is in these 3 formats. You can send it as an email, you can send it as a file share, or you can share it with any of the browsers here. So 3 different modes of delivery for the output that you get out of reporting server. And these are the formats that you get for your reports. That's PDF, MHTML, Word document, TIFF, Excel, XML. So 6 or 7 different types of formats you can get out of this whole thing, right? So what is one thing that is missing now? I would say, let's look at this guy. Do you have a redundancy for this SQL server or the reporting server? So go ahead and create a reporting server replica somewhere. The most popular way it would be is if your reporting server is a VM, then you don't have to worry because you can always take periodic snapshots, or again, the copy data virtualization that I was talking to you about, what my company does. We actually also help people in taking replicas of their server and doing multiple things with that same thing. So, and these can be replenished every 15, 20, 30, whatever minutes you want. Or if you have something like a VanSync, which is another data duplication software, you can actually have block level replication of the same server somewhere else. The only downside to it is that the reporting server replica, you will need to have a license for that if it is already up and running. If it is not up and running, then you don't need to have a spare license for that. So this is approximately where I pause to ask questions. So if you have any questions, you may want to start typing. Scott, do we have any questions?
I am not showing any questions at this time.
Okay, great. Which means either people are not listening or they are really having fun. So next layer would be ETL. Okay, so for ETL, again, if you look at this format that I followed for the SSRS thing, we have the exact same thing. First, look at the source, look at the target, right? Find the tools to carry out your ETL job, make sure that it is fault tolerant, of course, the cost, and is it easy to use, correct? So let's look at the source. The best way to define ETL, or just for practical purposes, since the cost for Microsoft SQL Server integration services is 0 because it comes built into your SQL Server, my bias is towards SSIS. Now, if you look at the best definition for an ETL process is data from anywhere, that is the source, to anywhere, right, via any tool. Okay, and it has to be fault tolerant too, and you can do that exact same thing that we did for SSRS. Let me go on. So this is how I'm just going to breeze through this guy here, correct? And again, these are the tools you can use to run against your SSIS. Take your data from your OLTP data warehouse, pump it into your, OLTP or data warehouse, and pump it anywhere you want. You can also get your data from email, and you can get it from XML, FTP, wherever you want. But the basic infrastructure would look something like this. SSAS, create a duplicate for it. Make sure that it sits on a good RDBMS, which is SQL Server, for example, and SSRS. It would feed the data to SSRS, have the SSRS server also duplicated, and then Power BI, the latest craze that you have, would actually help you get a lot of data out of the SSAS for your perusal. And some of the best reports that I've seen actually come when SSRS works out of SSAS, or you use Power BI tools to connect to SSAS. Now, let's go to the next one. StarNets. What are StarNets? Okay, so extranets or intranets. A lot of this is growing now. The original idea where you had everything paper-based and flowing kludgily over, including your vacation reports or your vacation requests and training requests, are now all handled through your intranets or extranets. Customers can submit their requests using extranets. So first, select a good platform for your extranet or intranet. Of course, IIS is a great way to go about it because it is free. Of course, people select Apache and other things, but how much of that would be compatible to your Microsoft products is a different story. So it's free, go for that and make sure that the cost is low. Is it scalable? Yes, definitely make sure that your extranets and intranets are scalable and fault tolerant, easy to use, and the skills have to be portable. Again, some of the things that can bring you down big time is to build a huge customer base around these two products and then have somebody walk out on you. But with the way Microsoft products are, it's so easy to go ahead and document everything that you have there. And in fact, I came across a product, I can't remember the name, but about a year back, they actually approached us and they ran their documentation tool against one of our EXEs, or the executable files, for which to document everything in that particular EXE and present it to us, saying that, see, if in case your guy ever leaves, you can use this as a documentation for you. So something like that, accompanied with the fact that you have an easier development tool, goes a long way in your ability to provide flawless BI infrastructure. And to click one more time. I don't believe in miracles. I'd rely on them. So BI infrastructure, SharePoint, this is the only thing that I haven't set up myself from ground up. So if you have any questions, I will take them and I will answer them in a day or so if I cannot answer them now. But essentially, SharePoint would have a web and a web front end provider talking to a SharePoint app server, and that would talk to a RDBMS. Have this duplicated. Same thing with your SharePoint app server, and multiple ways of doing it, clustering, or you can have block level replication, either way, and that works. And of course, your RDBMS itself should also be extremely fault tolerant or redundant. I have seen a lot of times that SharePoint servers kind of go into a lock mode because somebody turned on antivirus software on these. So any small files that come onto your SharePoint, they are treated as a hostile attack and your SharePoint shuts down. So few things like that you really need to watch out against, but you should live happily ever after.
Hi, Paresh. We had a question to jump
Sure.
back one screen from there about basically wanting some more details about the StarNet.
Or extranets or intranets would be it.
Yeah.
So intranets is something that would essentially be based off of a web server, and it would be like your website but for internal use only. So some people have a way to get into your intranet through your company's own portal, for example. And that intranet, for example, if you have 5 QA environments and 3 dev environments, intranet could actually give you as important information about what is the version of the software installed on each of those. Of course, you have to program all of that. It's not easy, but you can do it like one server or one application at a time. When I took the course on building your intranet through Northeastern here in 2002, I remember Sun Computer's intranet was awarded #1 in USA. And guess what was there on that intranet? It was the more serious content was spread evenly with some serious nonsense, including how to make your own pie, why do you want to make waffle in the workplace, and so on. So a mix. So what happens is that when you have intranet, it is also used to dissipate information like news, for example. You have a vice president minute video, for example, but to make sure that people actually read it or see that video, they have to have, just the way you build traffic to your website, you have to build traffic to your intranet too. Now, what is extranet then? Then extranet is essentially meant for customers who want to use your inside resources for their benefit. For example, okay, my job that I'm doing is working off of, or my project is working off of your UA environment right now. I want to see what is the version of the software on UA, and so on, then this is the way they can actually get into it. They want to come and look into what is the status of their ticket that they submitted. Well, all they need is a small hole in the firewall, and basically they can use a very simple authentication method to get into this. 9 times out of 10, there is not any PII or PCI or PHI information on these kind of nets. They're all essentially giving you information about your products, your services, and your environments. As to your products, you may want to make sure that the customers can see only very limited amount of information. You don't want to tell them what is the 5-year roadmap of your product, for example, because you don't know if they're really your customer or somebody who is just pretending to be your customer, buys a small product, gets into your extranet, and then kind of goes and does some industrial espionage. If that answers your question?
I think it covered what she was asking. I think that was good.
Okay. So by the way, I set up my own intranet about 10 years ago, believe it or not. And I was not even a developer. So the SharePoint is what we covered already. And what are dashboards? So do you know when you log into your HR page on your SharePoint or your intranet, for example, it would essentially give you a comprehensive information about where your 401k plans stand, for example, how many days of vacation you still have left, how many you took, what is your sick leave vacation. That is just one small part of the dashboard. So that is something, a dashboard is essentially something that you can see as a report on one page, which will have almost everything that you need to see. So if you log into your bank account, for example, it gives you a dashboard that will tell you exactly what is going on in each of these accounts for you. Make sense? So that is what dashboards are, and it is actually coming up pretty quick. And if you are in any of these BI SQL Saturdays, do attend these sessions by people like Sunil, Kadim Diwan, or Steve Simon. They are absolutely fabulous people when it comes to these kind of BI setups. So the first thing is in dashboard, what you want to have is either an OLTP database or a data warehouse, okay, which would in turn provide you data marts, which will give you information which are application specific only. So you can have 10 data marts which serve you 10 different types of information, just so that your load is balanced. And these data marts in turn would go into what is called as the handshake technology. It is actually a product, by the way. It's called handshake technology, and you can use that with some sort of an AJAX data delivery and authentication method, okay, which along with some sort of web authoring tools, which could be something as simple as SQL Server, Visual Studio, or something like a front page, or whatever else you are using, Cold Fusion. And you can combine these two to get you results on your web browser, which will then be fully rendered, and you have, it's amazing if you can get this to work. I set up the data warehouse, I set up the data marts, the web authoring tools, of course web browser set up by our desktop team, but this is where we had a special consultant, and he was absolutely fabulous. So how do I use the pen here? Pen. Okay. This was crucial for us. And 3 years ago, my company actually, when I was working in a law firm, we got the #1 dashboard award because of what we had on our dashboard. For example, all the lawyers could see on one page not only their HR information, but how many hours they worked, how many they billed, how much of it was pro bono, how much of that is still not collected by way of collections, and so on. So outstanding payments, everything in one page directly. And oh yeah, their multi-million-dollar bonuses, everything was visible on one page. So now, if you look at the overall BI infrastructure at a glance, right, this is typically how it would look now. There is like a company network which has a SQL Server database and a data warehouse, which is kind of controlled or fed by the MDM services. You have a standby over here. These are data warehouses that have multiple input sources for you, right? This is your user information here, what the users can do for you. So you can have a user who is using either SQL Server Management Studio or BIDS or SSDT or Excel or just even a simple browser to go at your BI. The sources can come from cloud or and/or big data. I mean, you have to use these big words, so that would really impress your manager too. So this is pretty much how a BI infrastructure would look like. We have covered most of the part of it. So now let's go on to the redundancy part of. I wanted to speak a little more about redundancy because it really can save your life. Now, let's go on to the next one. So redundancy. So how many ways in which you can actually make your server or your application redundant, right? So that's one thing. Then first thing you want to define is what are the needs for your redundancy? Do you want everything redundant? For example, do you want your C and the D drive also redundant in a SQL server? I guess not. Do you really need your entire backup folder to be redundant too? In a way, yes and no, but again, something that you can define based on what your business needs are, and you can work with your business department, and we will also take that into consideration as to how to keep them involved in this. So then you want to select hardware. Definitely the growing trend is to use virtual machines, so because it is so easy to move them between your ESX servers, for example, and if you want to replicate them across the coastline, then so be it. The second is the block level replication that I was talking to you about. There is a software which we use. It was called Axosoft's VanSync software, and that would actually, you can define, okay, I want my D drive and the E drive of SQL Server replicated over to another SQL Server which is in a stopped state in San Francisco data center, for example. And it would do that absolutely religiously. No matter what the change rate is, it would still go ahead and pump all the data across. Second way in which you could do this is, of course, remote clustering, high availability groups, redundancy wise. But the third thing is, how do you manage your copy data, for example? Now, all the tools that I told you before, for example, these tools have equal amount of hardware footprint, whether it is production or test or DR. Whereas if you go for something like a copy data management, there are multiple vendors for that. So copy data management would do is essentially take a hard copy of your first hard copy of your database, and then when you need a copy for your BI development or for your reporting services, it would just present a virtual copy to that environment. So that way you are now not copying your 5 terabyte database across the network, so that and you are not creating complex replication algorithms to make this thing work for you, because this doesn't cost you disk space anymore because the copies presented are virtual. Feel free to ping me if you need to have more questions answered on copy data virtualization, but by selecting the right hardware and the software combination, you can actually protect your entire BI infrastructure at a very, very low cost. And I'm not kidding you at all. So then what you want to see is redundancy. For example, in my previous job, our redundancy requirements were that the location had to be at least 300 miles from the production database or the production data center, because that is the general distance or the general radius of a nuclear blast. So if there was a nuclear blast and we still need to continue doing business, then the nearest one we had was in Washington, D.C. The third one we had was in San Francisco. Mind you, not everything was duplicated to San Francisco or Washington, D.C. They were kind of split in 2 or 3 different ways. And then San Francisco's own local copies were also replicated over to our Japan and Beijing offices too. So as you can see, the location very crucial for your survival. Choose the right technology, something that is going to be scalable, easy to deploy, and something that would really not piss your DBAs off. Okay, because whenever you have a new tool that you include without involving your team members, it is bound to fail. And we will cover that part of it too. Scott, how are we doing on time? I can't see the time on my screen.
We're doing just fine with time. We've got at least 15 more minutes, so
okay.
I think we're good to go.
Okay, good. So, and what do we do with everything pertaining to redundancy? Because right now, the redundancy software is evolving every single year. You know, in the good old days, the best thing you could possibly do was to set up a complex replication. Then came VMware, and now we have this copy data management. So keep on reassessing your copy data or redundancy requirements every single year. If possible, even 6 months. How do you reassess, for example? Definitely participate in events like these. For example, today I know you picked up a new term called copy data management. Then go to SQL Saturdays, go to PASS, attend VMware events where you can learn a lot yourself. Because if you are into BI and you are only sticking to your coding and your SQL Server development tools, guess what? You don't know the whole picture, and that's not good for your career either. So, and remember, if somebody tells you something, just say, I'm the DBA, you are not. Deal with it. So, the entire BI infrastructure, okay, so when you are setting it up, where do you start with? So first thing you want to do is buy in from your executive committee, or your exec buy-in is absolutely essential. Without their blessings, you can't do jack. Then go over to defining what is measures. I mean, what is defined as success for you, for example? Can you do 1, 2, 3 things that would be success? So it is then just becoming like any other project where you define your deliverables, your milestones, everything ahead of time. Okay, why is this necessary? Because once you're down the project road for 3 months, suddenly some Johnny will stand up and say, oh yeah, I didn't ask for that. So that is why make sure that you define these things up front and get 20,000 signatures for everything you do. The most important part in any project, especially things like BI or ETL, infrastructure setup, for example, is loft. And loft, I'm sure it's a new term most of you have not learned, but it is basically luck, opportunities, frustrations, and threats. So luck will happen when you are always looking at new technologies. Talk about it to your executives, right, or your senior bosses, okay? That once they say, yeah, geez, this looks good, that's your opportunity. The frustration is when the users refuse to adopt to it, or your network guy says, oh yeah, this sucks, I'd never see this in my organization before, I mean after this. And then threats are people who would absolutely go out of their way to sabotage this. Oh yeah, I don't like SSRS because my mother-in-law used to use Cognos, or I still love crystal reports like crazy. So these are the threats that come your way. So these are the 4 things you always want to keep in mind. Always go for LOF, LO properly, and F and T will always be there. But if you have the exec buy-in, you will live happily ever after. So lay a very solid foundation, okay? My first thing would be definitely go ahead and invest in your data warehouse. That is your solid foundation before you do almost anything for your BI. Use agile methodologies, because none of your projects should be more than 3 or 4 weeks long, and then equip your developers and the team members with tools that are appropriate to these small development cycles, so which will actually help them do constant innovation. If they screw up somewhere, they can always go back, because now they have just lost 3 or 4 weeks of work as compared to 3 or 4 months, which is any day better. So keep on innovating, new products coming in. So by having a proper foundation, it will help you innovate properly, because no matter what you do in this red stage here, foundation will take care of it. So, and as always, keep reassessing. Now, in these kind of projects, which is the single largest threat? Can we have a quick, like, a couple of people chiming in here? Okay, so nobody did? Okay, so the biggest threat I see is by way of scope creep. Okay, people want to push their agenda first ahead of everything else. They will use all sorts of political pressures to have you include and commit to deliverables that you know you cannot deliver. So be very careful and watchful of that. So say no to scope creep. Okay, and yeah, remember, it's a huge slug. It will eat you alive. This time and again. Okay, and you say the shit ends right now. Beware of scope creep. Most fundamental thing after having a good foundation is to make sure that there is no scope creep. And that is why when you define your measures ahead of time and get sign-offs, great. So users, right? Let me go through this slide, the entire slide, and then we will talk on each of the topics. Okay. So inform your users, right? Definitely about whatever you're planning to do. Involve them at every single stage. Whenever you have these weekly scrums or daily scrums for 15 or 20 minutes, make sure every single vested person or affected party, stakeholder, whatever you want to call them, they are all there. Collaborate with them. The days when IT could say, this is what I have, take it or leave it, are all gone. Without their collaboration, you will not be able to do anything. Definitely ensure that the users are trained. For example, if you're going in for Power BI and other user-based tools, make sure that they are trained on these. The training can be internal, it can be informal, or it can be external, depending on whatever your budget is on that. Then equip them. For example, if they want to develop their own reports, just don't let them say, okay, go use Report Builder to build your own reports. If they want SSDT, go ahead and have somebody install it for them. Because again, Microsoft in its eternal wisdom chose to not deliver SSDT with your SQL Server. You have to actually download it separately. And then always reassess, have weekly meetings with the users to constantly listen to what they have to say. Without users, you will not go anywhere at all. And select star from users where clue greater than 0, 0 rows return. So remember, although this is very true in most of the cases, users definitely need to be involved every single stage of the way. Team. I'll just rush through this pretty quick. So let's look at this. So the business, the most important part of the team, because they are going to be paying the bills. Involve your applications team, so people like your help desk, desktop, people who set up the applications, very crucial part of your BI setup. The database folks, most of the time you end up seeing the DBAs are the last people to know about anything about BI. If you are a manager or a CIO or a director, make sure that this is something you do not end up doing. Everybody here should be equally involved. Why do you need a project manager, for example? So project manager will actually make sure that all the stakeholders are involved and that the burden of managing this whole thing as a project is not necessarily on your head, because you have many technical things to do as well. Senior management, make sure in your meetings at least one person from senior management is there, because half the time or 90% of the time in the meetings they will still be just nodding their heads while looking at their Blackberries or iPhones, checking their emails. But at the end of it, they cannot say, I was not aware of this, right? And then the whole team, whatever it is, you need to keep on retraining them. So if your infrastructure changes, or if your lay of the land changes, make sure that everybody is made aware of and how it works as a whole and not as an individual part. Remember, it is teamwork. Security, I am going to breeze through. Again, remember, reassess all the time, but mostly involve your users, make it very secure, because this could lead into serious PII, that is personally identifiable information, PCI, that is personal credit card information, and PHI, that is a personal health care kind of information. All these three can be easily violated and your company will never recover from the lawsuits. So make sure that it is very secure. For example, our data warehouse, we set up a security where anybody created a new object or anybody changed a permission, everybody on our security team would know, including the director of national director of security and so on, CIO, everybody would know. And that would make very ugly for people who are trying to do it. Train the people about security, that keeping your sessions open, not a great idea. SA is a blank password, although most DBAs still love to do that, not a great idea. Setting up audit, which would kind of go hand in hand with your security, but get some third-party person to come in and look at your BI infrastructure. You never know. They have a different set of eye. Of course, the painful part is answering 20,000 questions for 7 days, and at the end of it, they will still come and say that you guys suck. But still, you need to have that audit stamp on your security aspect in your BI infrastructure as much as possible. And as I said, reassess it every so often, right? And remember, don't touch my database, even if you're just backing it up. How do you measure success? Okay, let's look at it. First, call the DBA, of course. But look at this. This is what I wanted to really share. This research, the source of this has been published in my bibliography, so feel free to look it up again. But the users, 61% of the users said that for them, success of your BI essentially means better access to the data, increasing operational efficiency, and helping them manage the day-to-day business better, and to a little bit lesser extent, but more important, is support of the key stakeholders, right? That is the key measure of success, and I will go ahead and highlight it for you. Okay, so let's go forward. So concluding, we talked about RDBMS. How do we go about selecting RDBMS, and then what is the data warehouse? How would you go about setting up your reporting environment, for example, and redundancy all the time? How to set up your ETL, your intranets and extranets, for example. Collaborative computing, big thing nowadays. Jive, SharePoint, multiple things you can have in your organization, but that paves way for a superb teamwork. And if you have scrums, you have meetings, you can start reporting and recording all your minutes on these kind of collaborative tools, where you can go back 2 months and see, oh yeah, this director who is now becoming a pain in the you-know-where was in the meeting and he said yes for this particular project. Now he's turning out to say no. So that is the level to which you want to go ahead and document your minutes. Make sure redundancy. I spend like a pretty good chunk of 3 to 4 minutes on redundancy alone. Please, please, please do whatever you do. Keep researching your redundancy tools always and forever. Make sure your users are not losers. They are actually the people who will be paying your paycheck or making your paycheck, and they are the ones who will be responsible for the success or otherwise of your project. Security, if you don't want to end up in hundreds of lawsuits, make sure that your security is absolutely spot on. And solve the problems first. The BI team, that is the fundamental things that the BI team is supposed to do. And if you don't solve the problems, the entire BI stack is of no use to your customers. And remember, avoid the scope creep. Make sure that you are delivering exactly what was asked for and signed for. Do not wait for somebody to come and quietly put in few more things so that they look good but you look bad. This is for the past business intelligence virtual chapter, and this is the bibliography. Definitely this slide will be available for you and you can go ahead and use this. If you did not see this, these two are the ones which was published by George Walters, and he's the Microsoft Premier Field Engineer in the Northeast. Is a good friend of mine too, and he conducted this session at the Rhode Island BI Users Group last week, and he gave out some solid information about that. So definitely feel free to check out these resources as well. I like this book. I have this book here by Hausen. It's a great book. I really absolutely loved it, by the way. And yes, of course, thank you as always. And setting up your own BI infrastructure. Remember, Paresh for President 2016. And thank you again. And that was me from Halloween. There's even a sparkle on the knife there. So that's me as Jason. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paresh.
Any questions, comments?
I'm still laughing at the last slide.
Oh, thanks, man.
I don't see any questions. We'll wait a second here to see if everyone wants to post any. I will pass along that this session is recorded, so you can go back and rewatch it. Also pass along to others that we will post the recording on the Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter YouTube channel, and that'll take a couple days. Usually they've got to process it, and then finally somebody will upload it to the YouTube channel, but that will come out. I know we had to move the date, so that I know there were some folks that didn't get to watch it today, so please encourage them to take a look at it on the YouTube channel. I did, let's see, we've got a couple of questions. One question that got posted, and I'll pass this along. Let's see, is there any advice for getting C-level buy-in? Any strategies that have worked in the past?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you selling Verizon now?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what
Okay,
it is. Cool. We've got one question that popped up is how do we garner C-level buy-in? Are there any strategies that you found that worked in the past?
The easiest thing to do is to push it up.
Okay, push it up the chain.
So one level up. So if you see something, then it's easier for you, or keep sending your CIOs on flights to exotic locations, because most of the time they pick up words that you never heard of, and then they make the entire organization run to implement that product for you. So something like that, make sure that when you go to the CIOs, when he's not there in his cabin, make sure you drop off this magazine which you want to implement a product or something like that. Circle it and don't leave your fingerprints on that. So but essentially, if you think that this is a good product, don't try to go too high. Make sure that you first talk to your immediate supervisor or the boss. They will definitely be able to push it forward. Like I had two projects that were driven essentially by me, and when I pushed them, it essentially just came through my boss. And then the CIO also wanted to have a insight into the product, the POC and all that. That happened. But then because if I went to my CIO, basically I'm also circumventing my boss, which is never a great move, right?
Yeah.
It's never a great career move. So
that
is the best way to get a senior buy-in. The other thing I found to get a senior buy-in is that in your organization, do not feel shy to get up and start giving training sessions or tech talks or something like that. Now what happens is that when you give tech talks, like I gave a SQL Server Reporting Services introduction class about 20 times in my organization. Once was attended by the CIO, 3 of the directors from our IT attended that, and one of our national directors of IT also attended that. Later on, director of HR attended. So now whatever you are talking suddenly makes a lot of sense to a lot of people that really matter. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Well, Paresh, I don't see any other questions that were posted. So again, thank you so much for your presentation today. We're very appreciative here at the Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter for your taking the time.
You're more than welcome.
Out of your schedules.
Absolutely.
Thank you everyone for listening. And I will just mention we do have another session that's coming up. Just Ginger Grant is actually presenting later this month. You can register on the PASS Virtual Chapter site for that. So thanks everyone, and we hope to see you at the next session. Bye-bye.
Sure. Bye guys.